if you're in a field and you're not really after the super high conductors that are coming in, and you can also get big bits of bronze and alloy, you can reduce that down so that it's not so in your face. Again, it's just to quieten the machine down. It's the same again, you could decide that from 2 to 10. Yeah, there's cut halves, cut quarters, and wee tiny bits of non-ferrous in the ground that will hear, but again you could reduce the volume down and then keep your maximum volume up at zone, I'll call it zone 2, which is 10 to 20 and 20 to 30, because that's where the majority of our targets are going to come. You know, your hammered coins, your milled coinage, and your other bits and bobs, they're all going to come in that range. So I generally, if I'm using 5 tones, keep them at the maximum volume and put the other 2 non-ferrous volumes lower so that I can still hear them and then decide whether or not I want to dig them, but they're not in my face all the time. And then iron, again, you can have it at its lowest setting, or you can have it reading, say, volume level 1, so it's just in the background. That's on 5 tones. 2 tones, it's much simpler. You've got a choice of 2. And that's how you also make customized programs. So if we go into the next setting, it's threshold. Now it's not a true threshold, as in it helps build targets, etc, etc. It's I'm trying to remember what Minelab called it. I forget it just now, but a reference threshold. So in other words, it's a reference and it's providing a threshold which will still null over iron, right? But you won't necessarily, it doesn't act like a true threshold, so you can't actually build a target with it to get it coming through. I generally have a threshold on because I like hearing it, but also if I want to put, if the field has got a lot of iron in it and I don't want to be distracted with the iron, I'll reduce the iron volume to 0, but I'll turn my threshold up, because that helps me also discern iron as well when I'm passing over it. And if it's iron that's falsing, and the type of iron that you're digging that frustrates people, your circular iron, your horseshoes, your big bits of iron with holes in it, then the threshold helps you to discern that it's actually a big bit of iron that's in the ground, because it's nulling all the time. And you know, I find it, you know, generally very useful to have a threshold. Not everybody does. If you want a quieter experience, like Sharon for instance, she doesn't run a threshold at all. She likes her machine quiet, and the hum in the background kind of annoys her. With this, the secondary feature on it, again, if you put a long press on the cog wheel, is your threshold pitch, and that's just generally preference, how high or low you want the threshold to sound in your ears. So it's up to you whether or not what you set it to there. And that's about all for threshold. Then we're into tones. So you can have one tone, which really, if you're a sadomasochist, you can go into one tone and dig absolutely every target you want, or you can choose gold mode. That's probably just as good. Or you've got what I would regard as the base one, which is 2-tone, and I use 2-tone all the time because I'm a very basic detectorist. There's nothing fancy about me. I dig holes in fields, and I'm not interested in deciding whether or not that's a ring pull or could it be a bit of silver. I'll dig it anyway. It's going to take me 10 seconds to dig it, so I'm going to dig the hole. So I tend to stick with the basic 2 tones, but you do have a choice if you want slightly more. In Victorian trash fields, 2 tones can be a wee bit frustrating, because as a target you might do an arc of a swing and you might get, you know, 5, 6, 7 targets in that one arc. So 5 tones, if you put it onto 5 tones and then you adjust the volumes, and you can also adjust the tone breaks in that, which we'll come on to, then it can make it a much better experience in a very busy site. With your when you're on actually the tones, if you do the long press there, you're then into your tone breaks. Now all this is doing is adjusting the target zones that you want to hear. So in essence, I could turn that all the way up there. If I'm actually doing it right, and down. So I can choose. Wait a minute. You know, that's actually, no, sorry, that's actually, is that my volumes? That's my volumes, sorry. so my individual volumes there, so I can put them up and down in that secondary function screen there. And again, the accept reject button changes it actually between T1, T2, T3, T4 and T5, assuming you're on 5-tone. This is where the tone breaks. This is what I was actually wanting to get onto. This is your accept and reject screen here, which will come up as -9 as standard. That's just a reference figure. Pay no real heed to it until you actually want to alter it. If you do a long press on that here, this is where your tone breaks come in. With again the accept and reject here is changing it. So that's them set as standard. If you can see it here, so you get T1, T2, T3 is saying 20. Now I can reduce T3 down, and you'll see the little, if you go onto it just now actually, if you all go onto your kind of accept and reject screen.
Standing here for some reason.
I don't know what tones you've set, but it doesn't really matter. And then whatever tone you're in, if you use the plus and minus, you'll see the little black bar changing at the top. Now that's reducing that target zone. So in essence, you know, T3, which I had there, which was getting from 10 to 20, I've now got T3 going from 10 to 12, so I've narrowed it right down. Now that's a tone break. If I change into T4, you'll see T4 goes from 13 now all the way up to 30, and I could reduce that down as well, so I could have a very narrow band there. So in essence what I've then got is I've got T1 on 2, I've got T2 going from 2 to 10, then I've got T3 going from 10 to 12, and then I've got T4 going from 13 to 15, and then the last one you cannot adjust, but that would basically be going from 16 all the way up to 40. It's just another way of customizing your machine if you were really wanting to coin shoot or hone into specific targets. That's an extreme example I've given you. I'm not advising anybody to use it as extreme as that, but it is there if you want it. And it's also, you might have seen recently with the updates that people are saying they're hearing cope because some guys are changing the tone break T1 and they're actually putting that down to 0, or they're putting it to 1. You will then hear coke because the majority of coke in the UK comes in at TID number 1 and number 2. So if you adjust tone break T1 away from the factory set standard, which is 2, you will start to hear coke. If you put it to 1, level 1, you will hear certain pieces of coke depending on the saturation level of them and the size of them. If you put it to 0, then you'll hear a lot more coke, and personally I don't like to hear coke, so I tend to leave mine at the factory 2 so that it's not bothering me at all, and then I'll alter the other tone breaks as and when I want. Now Paul gave me a question earlier which was to do with the accept and reject screen. He was wondering if he is notched out. If you go over a target and you inadvertently press that accept and reject button, the tick in the cross, you will notch out that number on your discrimination arc. And I've had some guys come up to me in the field and it looks like the toothless hag, if you know what I mean, with the discrimination arc, because it's had about 10 notches taken out of it because for some reason they're pressing the accept and reject when they get a good target. Then for the rest of the day they've notched that good target out, so they're walking about and then they'll come up to me in the field and say, well, how do I get rid of this on the screen? The answer's easy. You go into the accept and reject screen, which is here, as you can see, and then if you look, if I'm using the plus button there, you can see that number going from -9, it's going all the way up. Now what that is that's just a reference telling you where the cursor is on the discrimination arc. So now I'm on to 2 here, and if I go on to 3, that's not notched out just now, but if I then press the accept and reject, I can notch that out. I'll now zoom away up to 10, I'll press another, I'll notch it out, I'll put it up to 16, and I'm there. You can see I'm starting to resemble the kind of toothless hag, and that's the way that some people's discrimination arcs are looking. It's like that. And what they've done is they've actually notched out those numbers, so they've notched out potentially good targets. The easy way to put it back, you just look at your flashing cursor when you're moving it, and you're getting down, and it'll flash on the bit where there's the missing tooth. Just press accept and reject, and hey, dentistry at its finest, it fills it back in. Right, so again, we're just down to the next one. Accept and reject, fills it back in. Down to that one, accept and reject, fills it back in. I'll go back down to the last one I did, 3, fills it back in. And there I can put the reference back down to -9 now, and that's my discrimination arc all sorted. It's very simple. It's an easy thing to do, but it's also quite easy to notch out by accident if you press accept and reject when you go over a decent target. But that's how you fix it. That's how you fix it. Accept and reject screen, move the cursor, and then use the accept and reject button to notch it in